I wanted to kind of go into some stuff about the some key words, some things that are popular words nowadays, and one of which really is, I've gotten some mixed reviews on it. Most of the time I get the deer in the headlight look for most people, because most people are asleep at the wheel, and the word is deep state. You can call it whatever you want, but there is a power structure that is behind the structure that you see. The people that you see in Washington and stuff, they are only participants in a greater scheme. And the deep state, it's absolutely very structured. It's real. It's Council on Foreign Relations in the UN is where it basically starts at. These are globalists. These are multiple entities worldwide that have no allegiance to any nation. They're industrialists, and now they're becoming technocrats. They're going to use technology to control the population and even modify humanity in and of itself.
Akin to and largely responsible for the sweeping changes in our industrial military posture has been the technological revolution during recent decades. In this revolution, research has become central. It also becomes more formalized, complex, and costly. A steadily increasing share is conducted for, by, or at the direction of the federal government. Today, the solitary inventor, tinkering in his shop, has been overshadowed by task forces of scientists in laboratories and testing fields. In the same fashion, the free university, historically the fountainhead of free ideas and scientific discovery, has experienced a revolution in the conduct of research. Partly because of the huge costs involved, a government contract becomes virtually a substitute for intellectual curiosity.
But in the meantime, our government, as warned by Eisenhower in his farewell speech to the nation,
in the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Warned us about the military-industrial complex, which is absolutely right. If anybody would know, he absolutely would know.
We face a hostile ideology, global in scope, atheistic in character, ruthless in purpose, and insidious in method. Unhappily, the danger it poses promises to be of indefinite duration.
The deep state was the shadow government, the black projects crew, all those people, as Kennedy in one of his early addresses to the press corps in April of 1961, only a few months after he'd been inaugurated as president, he most directly mentions secret societies and a very ruthless power structure that comprises of everything from political, military, the media, the banks, and basically that's probably the speech that got Kennedy killed eventually.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and there is very grave danger, for we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
But there is a deep state. So for lack of a better way to say it, I'm going to use that term. Everybody recognizes it. And it is the biggest industry, the biggest business in the world, I'm thinking has to be military equipment. And the United States is the largest purveyor of that. We're really good at it. We make really good military equipment. Expensive, but really good.
Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions.
And as Donald Rumsfeld stated on September 10th, 2001,
according to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
Before 9/11, he stated that at that time, for the year up through the year 2000, that there was 2.3 trillion. That's trillion with a T. Trillion in 2001 dollars. There was 2.3 trillion dollars unaccounted for that went into the Pentagon. And these things go into black budgets, projects that nobody knows about, that they do, well, somebody knows about it, obviously, but even up to and including the President of the United States for the most part, to the point where Eisenhower got so pissed off about not being let into the loop, he threatened to send the First Army from Colorado into Area 51 and take it over, and so he could see what's going on. So I guess they eventually let a few inspectors go in, selected inspectors, so to speak. And you know they didn't see everything. How could you possibly see everything there? But at any rate, there's trillions of dollars, and I think they've been skimming off anywhere from $500 billion to $1 trillion every year that goes into these black budgets that's unaccounted for in the Pentagon, to the tune of today, the estimates range in the area of what the equivalent of the national deficit is. They invest these things into super technologies that we don't have any clue of. The general public, nor do many people in science and all that stuff know about. This is all very classified stuff. They have technologies that are 50 to 100 years ahead of what we utilize today.
The prospect of domination of the nation's scholars by federal employment, project allocations, and the power of money is ever present and is gravely to be regarded. Yet in holding scientific research and discovery in respect, as we should, we must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific, technological elite.
Or that we even know about. After the things I've read and stuff, I'm convinced that they have the technology. They could have done away with fossil fuels as a means of motivation 50 years ago. Tesla, I think, is at the core of it. And the things that the knowledge and things he came by, I'm convinced that it couldn't all possibly have been of him only. There had to be some super intelligent, perhaps extraterrestrials or aliens that had contacted him. Anyways, that's just me. That's my little thought about it. Nobody can be that smart in one lifetime. That's why God limited man's days to 120 years. Could you imagine how smart people would be today if they lived to be 900 years old? Think of that. But anyways, so there is a deep state, and it's got to do with the central banks, including the Federal Reserve, which is not your friend, by the way, and it's not even a government entity. It is a private bank comprised of multiple people around the world, many of them from the Bilderberg Group. And there is a power structure that is behind the scenes. These are globalists. They don't give a shit about America or what America is or what it should be or what it was, how it was created. They don't give a shit about our Constitution. All they want is their globalist agenda. And it is a godless agenda. That is one thing that they all have in common, even though they may not be directly connected with one another. All these different entities and the people involved are all in unseemingly unconnected ways, are all motivated to the same end point. And I think, just to put it very bluntly, there's good and evil on this planet. And evil is present. It's obvious. Evil likes to boast, you know, it likes to boast and show itself off. Look at me, I'm evil. I'm bad, I'm a bad mother, you know, and that sort of thing. Where good is the quiet voice within you. But nevertheless, there is a plumb line of truth, reality, and facts that can't be changed regardless of what you think or believe. So there's good and evil at battle, doing battle, fierce battle right now in the spiritual realm, and it is manifesting itself on this planet in various ways. There's many people out there that subscribe to this liberal globalist agenda without even wittingly being aware of what kind of entity they're getting involved with. It's going to continue to get worse and worse. It's going to continue to try to steal his soul and basically just turn him into an animal again than before the days he was given self-awareness, if that makes sense to you, which I believe came about 6,000 years ago. Man became self-aware in this era about 6,000 years ago, or around the time of recorded history. So at any rate, and you can't discount these forces, these evil forces that are doing battle in the spiritual, and it comes out in the physical. It manifests itself in the physical, and one of these entities is the deep state, and it's globalist international companies, weapons companies, you know, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, Hughes, TRW, Booz Hamilton. They're just many. The Central Bank, Deutsche Bank, Federal Reserve Bank, Wells Fargo. These are all huge players, and they all manipulate the money. And what's very important to understand is that what people don't realize is that all the wars that came about since the Napoleonic era, basically both sides were funded by the same. Think about that. As is today, when you get right down to the nuts and bolts of it, both sides are funded by the same money. All these world powers, have you ever seen any of them say they can't get the money to build their weapons? So give that some thought. And that all goes back to some very bad stuff in the physical. Ultimately, it goes back to the Rothschild dynasty. Rockefeller, Rothschild, Morgan, all those people. That's where it all sprouts from. But they bought into this evil, and it comes out. There's things, entities, secret societies, Illuminati, the Skull and Crossbones, or the Skull and Crossbones Society, which the Bushes were members of.
And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies.
But the deep state is real, and it's cohesive, and as JFK said, they are well organized, well machined, well funded, and they are ruthless. And
obviously, these hearings have been about issues much more profound than who did what or knew what in the Iran-Contra affair. They have presented two visions of government, much as the Constitutional Convention was presented with different views of the relationship between government and its citizens 200 years ago. One vision was described in the testimony of Admiral Poindexter, Lieutenant Colonel North, General Secord, and Mr. Hakim, that of a secret government directed principally by NSC staffers accountable to not a single elected official, including apparently the President himself. A shadowy government with its own Air Force, its own Navy, its own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue its own ideas of the national interest, free from all checks and balances, and free from the law itself. It is an elitist vision of government that trusts no one, not the people, not the Congress, and not the cabinet. It is a vision of a government operated by persons convinced they have a monopoly on truth.
That is what the big beef is about Donald Trump. Boom. So here we're going to land on this. They need Donald Trump out because he truly is not one of them. He is the antithesis to the deep state. And I think, though, that it's one of these things that you don't want it to be one of these situations where the operation was a success but the patient died. The deep state has so much power and is so influential and so organized that you have to keep in mind that when it comes down to it, the deep state is what has access to all the high technology, all the high military technology and things like that. You can't kill off the deep state and not kill off the military power of this country. Those trillions of dollars that have been taken into black budgets would manifest themselves in various ways if it ever came to blows. But so in reality, Donald Trump, by clearing the swamp, he has to clear the swamp, but he needs to leave the deep state structure intact. It's one of those things that if it collapses, the whole thing collapses. So he basically needs to do a coup d'etat on the deep state, and the deep state is trying to do a coup d'etat on Trump. Don't get wound up about all this stuff, all this peripheral stuff that's going on. It's good against evil, and at this point, it's clear as day, night and day, is the fact that Donald Trump is trying to be the white hat, and there is a lot of black hats that are trying to undo him. And I believe as time goes by, because the deep state is very patient, they're very cunning, if time goes by, if they don't get what they want, I think they're going to continue to ratchet up their efforts and the intensity and the tactics and strategies they're going to try to use. I think I wouldn't put past the entities of the deep state to make an attempt on his life at some point. I wouldn't put past him either the deep state's ability to, if need be, collapse the economy. And I do believe they are every bit willing and able to do that. I do think if they felt that was what they needed to do. I don't think I think they would do a scorched earth policy on things as far as before they would let the deep state become dismantled and give the power back to constitutional Americans. I think they're perfectly willing to crash the whole damn thing. Not like the olden days where before nuclear weapons, if you think about it, before nuclear weapons, it was easy to go start a war. People got killed and you used guns and cannons and airplanes and all that kind of stuff there, and it was always evolving. But when there was no nuclear weapons, it was very calculable as to what the end results were going to be. You see, but when nuclear weapons became introduced into the world, it put war on a whole different level so war cannot be taken and entered into for trivial or transient reasons.
Now look, boys, I ain't much of a hand in making speeches, but I got a pretty fair idea that something doggone important's going on back there. And I got a fair idea of the kind of personal emotions that some of you fellas may be thinking. Heck, I reckon you wouldn't even be human beings if you didn't have some pretty strong personal feelings about nuclear combat. But I want you to remember one thing. The folks back home is counting on you, and by golly, we ain't about to let them down. Tell you something else. This thing turns out to be half as important as I figured it just might be. I'd say that you're all in line for some important promotions and personal citations when this thing's over with. That goes for every last one of you, regardless of your race, color, or your creed. Let's get this thing on the hump. We got some flying to do.
The atomic bomb, atomic weapons, rendered warfare as a conventional means of settling disputes. It made that obsolete.
Mandrake, do you recall what Clemenceau once said about war? He said war was too important to be left to the generals. When he said that, 50 years ago, he might have been right. But today, war is too important to be left to politicians. They have neither the time, the training, nor the inclination for strategic thought.
Because you cannot go into any war without the potential of it going to full nuclear, which basically would mean would probably kill the planet, probably, sterilize the whole planet if it came to that.
As one who has witnessed the horror and the lingering sadness of war, as one who knows that another war could utterly destroy this civilization, which has been so slowly and painfully built over thousands of years, I wish I could say tonight that a lasting peace is in sight.
So, war is a different proposition now. So what they are doing because of that, the nations, primarily the United States, China, and Russia, are developing extremely advanced conventional weaponry.
General Turgid, sir, is there really a chance for that plane to get through?
Mr. President, if I may speak freely, the Rusky talks big, but frankly, we think he's short of know-how. I mean, you just can't expect a bunch of ignorant peons to understand a machine like some of our boys, and that's not meant as an insult.
From microwave weapons to sonic weapons to just radio weapons, all kinds of just weapons that are just beyond what we as people happen to know about. They can control the weather. That's obvious. They're doing chemtrails on us.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do. An SAI program could limit global temperature increases, reducing some risks associated with higher temperatures and providing the world economy additional time to transition from fossil fuels. This process is also relatively inexpensive. The National Research Council estimates that a fully deployed SAI program would cost about $10 billion yearly. As promising as it may be, moving forward on SAI would also raise a number of challenges for our government and for the international community. On the technical side, greenhouse gas emission reductions would still have to accompany SAI to address other climate change effects, such as ocean acidification, because SAI alone would not remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. On the geopolitical side, the technology's potential to alter weather patterns and benefit certain regions of the world at the expense of other regions could trigger sharp opposition by some nations.
How about HAARP? How about many of you people know about HAARP or DARPA? There's the stuff that goes on there and is incredible, and we have access to alien technology. That's I think disclosure is going to be. I think full disclosure eventually will come out here. I would guess, my guess would be in the next 10 years, where the government is finally going to come to the admission that we have had for many, many years an interaction and contact with aliens and extraterrestrials. Now don't take me at face value on this, because I'm just going to tell you what somebody conveyed to me that I hadn't thought about, but they said there's a difference between aliens and extraterrestrials. We as human beings are terrestrial. We're terrestrials on this planet. Aliens are from a different planet, somewhere else in space. Extraterrestrials are humans that are time travelers. They've come back from the future. And with it, they bring a lot of technology, obviously. But at any rate, that's kind of what I wanted to say is, I think that's ultimately what the real true battle is. It's between the white hat, Donald Trump, and the deep state. And like I say, it isn't like he can just destroy the deep state, because with it, I think the whole mess comes down. But it's interesting, and all this baloney about all the peripheral stuff is just all nonsense. It's just all complete nonsense. But at this point, looks like that's the only thing that the deep state, and don't kid yourself, the Democratic Party are up to their eyebrows in deep state. The Democratic Party, people, for you millennials, is bad stuff. Very bad stuff. If you're going to any kind of college nowadays, with few exceptions, you are being brainwashed. You're having your heritage stole from you. You're being brainwashed into a bunch of garbage, a bunch of satanic, evil crap. And it comes in the form, much of the time it comes in the form of communism. The only difference between a socialist and a communist is a socialist doesn't have a gun yet. I think it was, as Lenin said, the ultimate goal of socialism is communism. But that's a failed thing. But boy, they're trying every tactic they can. They're trying every tactic they can. We need to stay strong. We need to pray for Trump. He's a bad mamma jamma. He is New York tough. There ain't no doubt about that. And I love listening to the guy. All of a sudden, he's not the one being all rude and crude, is he? But it's an interesting thing. If it wasn't so damn serious, it could make a hell of a television series, huh? You can't make this stuff up. That whole Strazek thing and all the Russian baloney, all that garbage is totally unbelievable. But so anyways, guys, that's my rant. I'm about here, so I think I'm going to check out, guys. Thanks for watching.